We have the story from CNN. Israel says it targeted Hezbollah leader in strikes on Lebanese capital. So this is the breaking news. It's been going on all day. Explosions continue to rock southern Beirut. And it's getting crazy out there. Beirut authorities urge displaced people to seek shelter. This was in response, I believe, to we have a video here. Take a look at this. I don't know when this is from, but this is reportedly a video of the Iron Dome intercepting Lebanese missiles. Yo, this stuff is wild. Look at this barrage. I'm pretty sure this is the Iron Dome that's firing in the air like that?
I think so.
Because I'm like, I don't think that's Lebanon firing right there in Tel Aviv or whatever.
Or Hezbollah.
Right.
Yeah, that's them knocking. That's
crazy.
them intercepting everything in mid-flight.
That's crazy, man. And so this stuff's been going on, what, like nonstop for decades, basically, or what?
Well, it's escalated tremendously as of late. They took out the lead diplomat for Hamas in that Tehran strike, and now allegedly the reports are that they took out the leader of Hezbollah within the past few hours. I mean, look, I've no love lost for any of these people, but I'm just saying from my vantage point, the fact that we are arming and funding one side very heavily, and they seem to be taking pretty extreme measures to go after their enemies, I'm very concerned that the U.S. military will also get kind of sucked into this conflict.
I see an impasse. I see, for me, I'm largely anti-intervention. That actually part of the dossier that they leaked of J.D. Vance was him. They said that when they did research on him, like he's very anti-interventionist, and I'm like, I like this guy.
Me too.
That dossier was actually pretty good in my support for J.D. Vance. The problem I see now is we're in it. That's it. Like, we can sit here and daydream all night about what it would be like if we weren't funding what was going on, but we're in it. I mean, that's it.
We are in it in terms of funding, but it's a big increase to have troops.
We sent troops to Gaza to build a beachhead.
I know,
and they were getting shot at.
Yep. And we also have troops going to Cyprus to help get people out of Lebanon. Yeah,
exactly. And we've had U.S. troops in Israel for a long time.
Right.
So as much as it's not the same as Ukraine in that regard, I feel like we're at an impasse. It's begun. Like, I don't know.
Weren't there also U.S. teams involved in helping the hostage rescue teams?
Yes,
I think that was part of it too.
There was reports of that.
There were Americans being held. They've since been, murdered by the terrorists. But I think the Americans were helping with that.
And the challenge I see, like, basically what I'm saying is, I want to sit back and be like, why are we involved in this? Why is this our issue? And then it's like we've got troops there and
tens of billions of dollars.
But it's like the conflict with Iran and with these surrounding countries, the involvement we've had in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, we're entrenched. I also
find it confusing why we're not helping. Like, there's 3 Americans who were imprisoned for allegedly attempting a coup in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I don't know why we're not helping those guys. It was like 3 guys.
If they tried to overthrow the government of Congo, should we help them?
Well, it was an allegation, and there's not really evidence that was their intention.
Yeah,
so
but
that's
I'm just
sort of
saying.
interesting
I'm saying
well.
you would think that they probably
help Americans
know.
wherever they are.
Let me ask
they
you,
were
Riley.
college kids who went with their friend to the Congo to visit their dad. But
on the subject of Israel, I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, one of the things to keep in mind here, and a long time ago, I worked on the Hill too, so I'm privy to at one time a little more intelligence than I am now, which I'll probably have access to again here soon. But a lot of the guys and the bad guys that they're dealing with, Hezbollah, Hamas, whoever it is, every time they say death to Israel, what's the next word out of their mouth?
Death to America.
Death to America, right? So they are kind of on the leading edge of a lot of this stuff. Now, I don't think anybody wants U.S. troops involved in some kinetic conflict in Israel or anywhere in the Middle East at this point. But they're about the size of New Jersey and can be overrun very easily. And I do think it is in our interest to have a country like Israel in existence in the Middle East. I think it serves us well and our security. They are a democracy. They're Western-leaning. They're a Western nation in my book. And, I think it is in our interest to stand with Israel. I do think it is in our interest. It is unique.
Is there a limiting principle to that claim at which you would say, okay, this is too far? If they were to launch a nuke on Iran tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's, obviously that hypothetical is always kind of
that's
out there.
disavow.
Yeah.
If they go with Samson.
Yeah, see, but that means there is a limiting principle. For
But,
many,
I mean-
for many people in Congress, there is no limiting principle.
Oh,
Like with abortion. No limiting.
Well,
principle.
look, my thing is, I hate it when I see these people, they go on TV and they're like, we should not be funding Ukraine. The Ukraine is not our conflict. And then they're like, what about Israel? Oh, well, Israel. I mean, Israel's different. And I'm like, well, articulate it. It's fine. You can. I think there's a difference between the two countries. I think we've had a long-standing alliance and relationship with Israel. Ukraine. To be fair, the best argument I've heard for Ukraine is that we do have a treaty with them that stated if they were to be invaded, we would come to the defense.
It's not a treaty. It's just a memo from 1992. It's
I know.
just a memo.
But it's the best argument is the
Not
assurance.
ratified by Congress or anything.
Right. And that's why I'm
Then it's
typically.
just a piece of paper.
It's a memo.
But that's why I'm still pretty much we shouldn't be involved. But that's the best argument I've heard is that we said you get rid of the nuclear weapons, we will defend you, and then we were like later suckers.
Yeah, we promised super duper hard.
Was it like the Budapest memo? We said give up your nukes and we'll protect you. Because
There is
Which, by the way, is like the worst incentive ever because
Right.
we did that with the Libyans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, hey,
and
how'd that work out for
their main
Gaddafi?
guy,
Right.
not
Yeah.
good.
Mind you,
We killed Gaddafi right when he was really boosting the African continent and bringing everybody together for like manufacturing and all of these things. Like
gold backed currency, though.
yeah, he was
Big
gonna,
mistake.
Yeah, he was going to do all of that stuff for Africa and lift the continent up.
my point is I would appreciate if people could articulate an actual reason why they think Ukraine no funding, Israel yes funding, and then Taiwan's never even mentioned. And I think you could make the argument, like I said, like we've had a long-standing relationship with Israel to help them defend themselves from the onslaught they've been receiving from these neighboring nations, and it's an ongoing active conflict over what are we doing 70 some odd years.
Yep.
And Ukraine is the Soviet Union collapsed and beginning of the 90s. And we have no business. What's going on? Why are we there? I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess one of the frustrating parts, though, is, and President Trump says it, like, what do you want? What are you going to do, President Trump? I want peace. I want the killing to stop in Ukraine. That's what I want. And it feels like that's not what they want, right? Because as Bobby Kennedy's pointed out very clearly, that there was a deal on the table, right, to broker some type of peace deal.
Over a year and a half ago.
And right. And that was completely scuttled. And certainly, look, I'll take their point. Do we want Russia on the border of Poland? No, probably not. But to that, the issue of Israel is quite a bit different because we're not talking about like territorial gains. We're talking about like extermination of a country that is aligned with us as it relates to anti-terrorism activities and things like that.
This is my question then, right? So, Trump comes in, you got Ukraine, Russia, and right now there could very easily be, you keep Crimea, you've got a naval base there and a massive industrial port. The Donbass, we're not going to let that go. The fighting stops. And then there's some concessions. Maybe Russia gets certain access via a land bridge to Crimea, but it ultimately ends the conflict. That doesn't exist with Israel. Trump comes in and says, I want the fighting to stop. They're screaming death to Israel.
Yeah.
Hamas has, they removed it, but in their charter was the line from the Hadith about how they are required by their religion to kill Jews. The thing with Israel is, and it's a question I have for you guys, because I don't know that I have a good one. What do we do? Clint, this one's for you because I'm genuinely curious about the libertarian perspective on this. What should the U.S. do right now? Like, let's say you woke up tomorrow and they said, Clint, you are 897,426 in line for the presidency, and it's you, baby, somehow. What would you do? And I preface this.
So my first day on the job, I have to bring peace to the Middle East.
That's right. Well, no.
my God.
My point is just, if I look at Ukraine and the attitude they give Trump is, do you want Ukraine to win? And I'm just like, I don't care.
Right.
Like, if you ask, my genuine response, and when someone was like, do you want Russia to win or Ukraine to win? I'd be like, I don't care. Like,
Well, you heard what Trump said. He wants less dead people.
and that's a good answer.
Yes.
That's a good answer. And I'd give a better answer than I don't care. Okay. I'm just being a kind of a dick. But with Israel, it's like, if we cut ties to Ukraine and tell them you're on your own, it's like, well, like, good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
If we do that for Israel, Israel ceases to exist. Like they get bombed into oblivion.
Well, maybe. I mean, if it's true that in fact they have nuclear weapons, then they can probably defend themselves. So,
And then if we detach and say you're on your own, and then Iran,
and then they
Hezbollah, and
start to
Hamas,
nuke, yeah, I don't know.
and
It's not easy.
This
I
is
mean,
funny because Ben Shapiro brought this up, and I think it's a terrible. It's a real argument that's actually not a bad argument, but it's a terrible prospect. He said that if we do not provide the support to Israel and they go Samson option and launch a nuke, like World War III, we don't want that. So it's better that the U.S. remains involved, keeps these boundaries drawn, and I'm like, that's a terrible prospect.
it is.
Well, and there's so much going on.
But it's
with
better than them
regional
nuking
conflicts.
somebody. I mean,
Yeah.
what?
There's so many like regional conflicts that we're not super familiar with like the Sunni versus Shia,
Yeah.
all of this sort of interpersonal cultural stuff that we don't
Real
even
quick,
really
sorry guys.
know about.
I'm just curious, Clint.
Yeah.
Like if you could implement a policy, would it be Israel on your own, or do we go in and say we need peace?
Well, I think at minimum there needs to be a phase out into them being their own autonomous nation that no longer takes aid from us. But I apply this principle to every country all over the world. I don't think that if you aren't able to exist without America being your benefactor in perpetuity, that's a problem that you need to figure out at some point, and it has to stop. And that applies to Ukraine. I mean, we are actively funding basically the entirety of Ukrainian government.
And money's getting stolen.
Yeah, of course, because it's and it was corrupt. It maintains, or it continues to be corrupt. So that needs to end. I just apply the same principle across the board. I say same thing with Taiwan. Like it's got to figure out its own security at some point, or it has to negotiate some sort of agreement with China where they either bring them in or they allow them to have their full independence. So I think that the same rule applies. What I don't like is when, and I like you a lot, and I hope you end up in Congress, but I will say I don't like when people argue that Israel has in fact benefited us in terms of foreign policy. I'd like to hear that argument laid out more explicitly in that. From my vantage point, after the clean break document in the mid-'90s, all of the wars that we fought in the global war on terror seem to have been to the benefit of Israel and very much to the detriment of not just the American people, but most importantly, American soldiers. That is where I find it to be most wrong.
I think that Israel is basically a large pro-West American weapons manufacturer, security, cybersecurity. The liberal economic order comes into existence around the same time that, Israel is basically, you've got, the liberal economic order came a little bit before, but the Israel-Palestine stuff started erupting, I think, like 10 years later. So you have after World War II, all these, world leaders are like, we don't want World War III to happen. If World War III happens with nuclear bombs now, it's game over, man. So here's what we're going to do. Lo and behold, we now have the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the SWIFT payment system. Yep. We've got the CIA. The Council on Foreign Relations brags about the machine they've built. And so when it comes to the Middle East, Iraq and Afghanistan, Gaddafi, what are the big talking points there? Saddam Hussein wanted to do trading outside of the petrodollar. Gaddafi wanted to do trading outside the petrodollar. Gaddafi wanted to create an African Union. He wanted to bring a bunch of countries together and strengthen, much like BRICS. And so we saw he died.
Yep.
I see Israel as, what do? They make weapons. They do cybersecurity. They're developing crazy missile guidance systems, things like that. And for the U.S. to have this hub of operations that allows them intelligence in a region they are trying to disrupt and long have been, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, the United States, then you've got issues.
But I think the premise is flawed, though, because has that disruption throughout the Middle East been to our benefit, or has it created a sustained peace in the Middle East? The answer is no on both accounts.
But you misunderstand. The liberal economic order does not want peace.
Oh, well, okay. Then you're right. Your premise is correct then.
Yes. My point is, we're looking at this like, why are we engaged in this? It's leading to war, conflict. U.S. men and women are dying. Right. And the liberal economic order is not a conspiracy theory. It's on the CFR's website. They talk about this. You can read the whole history of it. Their attitude is petrodollar supremacy.
Yep.
That means we're gonna take over Iraq. We're gonna take over Afghanistan, which is a pincer strike on Iran to get Iran to fall in line. Sanctions. Iran has not been falling in line. Why the conflict Israel-Iran? Well, I largely view Israel as, it's funny because the people think that the U.S. is the craziest thing to me. They think that Israel controls the United States, and I'm like, I think it's much the other way around. I think the United States has vested interests in the operations in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. There's a large conflict going on for decades over getting cheap energy into Europe to expand the European economic bloc because we're competing with the BRICS nations, which are now getting stronger and rising in power. So I think the principal reason why the U.S. is so hell bent on Israel, we're trying to basically flatten the Middle East, and it's Iran specifically.
Well, we give so much money to Middle Eastern countries. Ukraine, of course, is the top. We give a lot of money to Israel. And then there's Afghanistan, Yemen, Egypt, Jordan. These are all places we give money to. Syria. It's like every place we go to.
Bombed.
And
We give
end
Israel
up
a lot
with.
more.
Yeah, well, we give Israel, we have like a deal to give them some certain amount of money every year that Obama signed.
But we've given
they are an
we've given
ally, but all of these other places aren't even allies.
We've
and
given
we're giving them
Ukraine
money.
more money than Israel has received in 5 decades.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
But it's
Which
so
is
crazy that we're
nuts.
giving so much money to places that are not our allies, where you have people chanting "Death to America" in the streets. Like,
But do you know why? In my opinion, is that the reason that they give these large sums of money to these nations is actually goes into what Trump was doing in negotiating peace between Israel and those enemy nations. Is that you're right, they're not our allies. We were buying their go along with Israel. Like that's really what we were witnessing, and I don't support that.
The strategy of giving U.S. dollars to these countries is to get them to use the dollars.
That's true too.
To strengthen
Which we do
confidence in the
need.
petrodollar.
to a certain, we do.
Yeah.
Need
Well,
that
look,
if,
I mean,
if we're
what-
not
the money.
isolationist.
At
we
what
need
cost,
that.
though?
And so remember that money to Egypt, which is, if I remember correctly, just over $1 billion a year, that came in after Sadat cut the deal with the Israelis. And back when we weren't giving any foreign aid to Israel, remember you had Yom Kippur, 7 Days War. I mean, and it was Nixon that came in and was like, they're either going to be gone or we're going to jump in here or we're going to do something. But my point about Israel in terms of our cooperation is the intelligence sharing is helpful. It is helpful to us. And just from a cultural standpoint, I'm just going to say this, is I would much rather have these culturally very significant Christian places in the hands of the Israelis than Hezbollah or Hamas.
Why does it matter in terms of, do you think in terms of like...
I don't think Hamas is going to give me a visa to visit the Holy Sepulchre.
I understand.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right.
Well, I'm sure.
I mean, the
that's true,
UN
yeah.
just recently put together a thing where they were saying to get rid of all the Jews in certain parts of Jerusalem.
I mean, this is the problem with creating a nation out of whole cloth, which is essentially what happened in 48. And now, because of that, you have a people that have a very different cultural framework that are surrounded by people that don't like them. And that's really the issue. And like, it's going to be an issue until there's some sort of catastrophic resolution is what it appears like. The problem is that it seems as if we are edging ever closer to that catastrophic resolution as opposed to a peaceful one. And I don't, you asked me to start off this whole segment, what would I do? I think that ultimately the main reason that Israel is able to behave in the way that it has as of late, taking out, like doing, head of the snake strikes in Tehran, I mean, in the capital of Iran, doing it against the leader of Hezbollah just a few hours ago, is that they know that we are the big guy on the block and we are going to have their back. Yep. And unless you actually signal that there is a limiting principle to our allyship, well, then they have no reason to ever go to the negotiating table and treat their neighbors with any sort of respect either.
You're saying the U.S. should just send a strong example to Iran and Lebanon right now and say, stop the war because we got Israel's back.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No.
But don't forget.
But they do know that, though.
Don't forget the other.
But we're not doing anything. I mean, we give Israel funding.
Yeah.
But now Lebanon's been firing rockets at Israel endlessly since October 7th and long before that as well. And now Israel is firing back.
But I just want to make clear, it's Hezbollah. And Lebanon itself used to be a very peaceful country when it was run by Maronite Christians not that long ago. And what has happened is there's funding on the other side. Who funds Hezbollah and Hamas? It's the Iranians. Who's funding the Houthis down there in Yemen right now, right on the border of Saudi Arabia? It's the Iranians. They're funding conflicts all over that region. And to bring it full circle, President Trump was the only guy who was able to come in with the Abrams Accords and get Arab nations to recognize Israel and actually try to bring peace to the extent you can. The Iranians aren't going to come into the fold of that. Obviously, there's a Shia-Sunni split in between those Arab nations and this Persian nation that happens to be Shia over there in Iran. But at least you could have some counterbalance there where it's not some tiny little nation of Israel on its own and have some type of alignment with the greater Arab world in that region, which I think actually would have made it a lot safer. And then the Biden administration just basically did nothing and left the whole Saudi part of it on the table. And he should have got a Nobel Peace Prize for it. I mean, Obama got one just for being elected.
Right. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Abraham Accords. I think Trump did a really good job with that. And for the first time, there was, a level of peace happening in that region.
I could be wrong about this, but doesn't Barack Obama hold the record for most
Drone strikes?
Most children killed by a world Nobel Peace Prize holder?
I think that has to be correct.
By a large margin. By an infinite margin, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, who've won the
Nobel Peace Prize drone to U.S. citizen.
That too.
I mean, maybe there's a list of Nobel Peace Prize laureates. There might be someone in there and you're like, oh, that guy was a monster. Going back a whole long time. So he may not, but I think he probably does. I think that has to be true, right?
Oh, he's, of course.
Oh, Yasser Arafat's
Gorbachev
got one.
got one, though.
I saw Yasser Arafat had one.
Does he really?
Yeah, here, scroll. Yeah,
Yasser Arafat has a Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay.
That's really funny.
You think he's killed more children?
I don't think so. Then Obama, not a chance.
8 years of bombing the Middle East. That adds up.
I don't know. The first Intifada was pretty bad.
The UN got one. That's silly.
Oh, Jimmy Carter, great.
Well, he's still building houses, right? He's very old.
Yeah.
What did they Obama for his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples? What is that?
He promised super duper hard. He promised super duper hard that he would bring world peace, and then he bombed 7 countries.
It's such a great participation trophy. Thank you for being here.
We don't really pay attention all that much. Like, does anybody know who Narges Mohammadi was?
Never heard of her.
Yeah, I mean, she's fighting against the oppression of women in Iran, promoting human rights.
You know what's interesting about fighting against the oppression of women in Iran is you've had a lot of women who are Muslim who live in oppressive countries who are forced to wear certain types of clothing, forced to do head coverings and all like that. And they're always like, where are the American feminists? Where are the Western feminists trying to help us overthrow our oppressors so that we can live in a free way? And the American and Western feminists are like, oh, that's just your culture. Your culture is to be oppressed. So we're okay with that because you're minorities.
We got to recognize diversity here.
Right. You got to recognize diversity. And some diverse cultures oppress their women. And that's
They don't want to come off as Islamophobic.
Yeah,
There's a hierarchy of what you're allowed to be.
Yes.
In the oppression Olympics, there is. We must respect that culture. And then also, they're also busy oppressing actually women in our own country through the trans movement.
Yes.
So that's
amazing.
kind of tied up in that.
We do have a number. It's the Bureau of Investigative Journalism estimated between 380 to 801 civilians, including 64 to 116 children killed in drone strikes in Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia between 2009 and 2016.
Which
Seems like a
look this up.
conservative estimate.
That seems conservative.
I think that beats George Bush in terms of drone strikes, doesn't it?
Well, I know he dropped more. I don't know if there was more I think he was just doing civilian casualties. Which
Okay. I was just thinking.
Keep in mind, statistics are manipulated heavily on this because they say civilian casualties, like they say enemy combatants, was basically any fighting age male.
Yep, that's Obama did that. He changed it because they were getting beat down in the press by the civilian deaths, and then they said, it's a military age male.
Yep.
So it's literally a guy carrying a couple of water buckets to his home from the river.
But he could have been headed back to get his rifle. You don't know.
Not to mention Obama, he killed Abdulrahman al-Awlaki, and that one is that's like cold-blooded murder.
Egregious.
I'm going to say this because my opinion on that is the Obama administration intentionally targeted a civilian restaurant to kill Abdulrahman al-Awlaki to send a message to terrorists that the United States will murder your children if you stand against us. Mm-hmm. That's what I believe they do.
Even the mafia doesn't do that. They don't go after women and children.
And the wild thing, there wasn't anybody really on his side, political party-wise, saying a word. They're just, okay.
Yeah, well, it's like it never even happened. If you bring it up, they would probably accuse you of, disinformation or
I
something.
mean, some of these migrants that are coming over the border, it's like maybe if you can't beat them, join them. And they're just like, well, we can't beat the United States. Might as well move there.
Yeah, well, they're moving.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, I think a lot of what's happening is,
Mother Teresa got one. There we go.
There was a... In Venezuela,
Saint Mother
the reason why so many criminals are coming in, Trump is right. They're people who are in prisons, and the government's being like, we're going to let you go, but go to America. And so they're clearing out their prisons, reducing crime by telling their criminals to go to the United States.
Yep. Oh,
But I thought Trump was making that up, Tim.
Oh,
definitely not. Just to go back to the Ukraine example, contrasting that with the Israeli relationship, I view it very much the same way. Trump's proposal mirrors mine when it comes to what I was talking about with Israel, is that the only way you're going to get Zelensky to the negotiating table is when you actually tell him there is a limit to the aid that you will receive. There is a limit to the munitions you will receive. Trump is saying that, and you look at Zelensky walking behind him today, and he going up to the podium. He looks like a beaten dog. He's just like yes, we will find peace. You're correct, Mr. Trump.
I love Trump's like, I have a very good relationship with the president, Putin.
Also with President Putin.
Also President Putin.
This is the thing, okay? Ukraine and Russia's conflict is over primarily access to the Crimean Peninsula.
True.
And where Russia has their naval base, the home of their Black Sea Fleet, a massive industrial port, and they had a bridge going from Russia into Crimea, and it got bombed. Mm-hmm. It's exactly why Russia wants the Donbass and the regions going into Crimea. He wants land control.
Yep.
And a lot of people are like, he can build on the Black Sea anywhere, and it's like he's not going to give up a multi-hundred-million-dollar, industrial center and port where his navy currently is, and just say, here you go, NATO, you can have it. That being said, those negotiations can happen. Israel, these people, like there is in the Hadith, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this the words of Muhammad, or what is that?
Clerics.
What is it?
Clerics that wrote about it.
Clerics wrote about it. Okay, where it literally says something to the effect of the end will not come until all of the Jews are killed, and the rocks and the trees will scream out, "Oh, child of Allah, come! There is a Jew hiding behind me," and kill him.
But there are Muslim and Arab neighbors that do not have constant warfare with Israel. So I think that to argue that because of their religious doctrine you could never see peace.
I'm not saying that.
Well, that seems like what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that it's easy to negotiate land. It's difficult to negotiate ideological conflict.
You're right. Of course.
And so, right, you've got the West Bank and Jerusalem. You've got serious conflict there over.
It's a almost intractable issue. It really is. And I mean, this is why we've seen decades and decades of, very high level diplomacy trying to seek peace. The issue is that I think that simultaneously there are financial interests, particularly the military industrial complex in America, that benefits tremendously by there being continued warfare. So I don't think
that is the purpose of it.
Yeah, well, I agree. But my point is, I think that there's this argument that we cannot find peace. My argument is that peace is very challenging. However, I think that there are financial imperatives domestically that make it basically impossible.
Right. I'm going to tell you one thing that's really interesting is that 20% of the population of Israel is Arab. They're Arab Israeli.
Yep. Very
peaceful people that are living a very good existence there. Can you imagine being a Jew living in Gaza right now? I mean, like it's
or in any one of these other countries, they have challenges.
Yeah, it's just not possible. It's just not possible. There's nowhere else in the world they can go. And look, if it's been said many times, if Hamas and Hezbollah put down their arms tomorrow, there would be peace. If the Israelis do it, there would be no more Jews.
This is a question I ask of a lot of people, and this is not for me. This is not me saying like we should give Israel infinite money. The question is, what would happen if Israel took down the barriers around the Gaza Strip and said free movement for all peoples? What would happen?
Well, they would get massacred.
Yeah, and they did that before. That's why they built walls. Oh, walls work, shockingly. They built walls as it relates to the West Bank after the Intifada, right? It's like, we're not going to do this anymore. We have to have some control.
After October 7th, I can't remember who I was talking to, but it was someone who was very anti-Israel. And they were saying that these people were going to where their ancestral homes were, these little villages, and attacking them to take them back. And it was their land, and the land was taken from them by Israel and all that. And so I asked that question: if they took down all the barriers around Gaza and said you are now all free to move about all of this land, what would happen? Wouldn't they right of return? Wouldn't they go back to the land they claim to be theirs? And then when they find, I don't know, like a little old Jewish lady living there, how does that go down? I think we saw what goes down on October 7th.
Well, the issue is that you see the inverse of that when it comes to Gaza, when it comes to people that are in their properties also being purged because of settler activity from the Israelis.
West Bank.
West Bank. But it actually, I think it has happened in Gaza as well.
They're out of Gaza now.
Yeah, they pulled out of Gaza 20 years ago.
I know, but I'm saying historically. But regardless, I'm just saying this issue is occurring on both sides all the time. That's why I don't want to be involved. That's why I think America needs to get the F out of there. And I think the same principle applies to Taiwan and to Ukraine.
I agree on the we don't want to be involved, America first, secure our borders. But if we were to say right now, at least I think this is a fair assessment. If we were like right now, like, you know what, the U.S. is done with this Israel thing. You guys are fighting all the time. You've got land disputes between your own borders, West Bank. You haven't figured it out, so we're out. What, in like a year, Israel is just flattened?
I don't think so. I mean, Israel is a legit military, and I do believe they have nuclear weapons. So I find it very hard to believe that they would just be conquered.
But then, I mean,
their enemies don't have nukes. They do.
If we're not funding,
don't you think Iran has nuclear weapons at this point?
Not at all.
No. I don't think they do. I mean,
Lindsey Graham would be screaming it into my face 24/7 if they had nukes.
We've declared war the moment they had actionable intelligence that they could convince the public of. But I think it's reasonable to conclude if we're not providing military aid to Israel, Iron Dome withers. They've got David Sling. What do they have? The names of the various defensive systems?
Yeah, look, I understand your concern, and a phase out is fine.
My point is, I don't know that they can sustain their defense, which you make a really great point. If you can't exist outside of the U.S., then you shouldn't.
Yeah. Not forever. Like
right.
We have to pay them forever to just keep.
Right. That's nuts. And so that's why I said I feel like we're entrenched, because if we say we're done, then it is. Look, my fear is I don't want to see Israel wiped out. Not at all. I want them to defend themselves from the chaos. But if they have a nuke, and if we're like, we're going to phase this out, and they just say, okay. And then when Hezbollah, Iran, and Hamas and whoever else are attacking from all fronts, they just say, you know what? Nuke Beirut.
Yeah,
wipe it out, turn it to glass, and then we get
right.
World War III.
You're right. It's a risk. It's absolutely a risk. But there's another risk that maintaining this current trajectory leads us towards continuing escalations, keeping in mind that Iran is also allied with Russia.
Right.
We're already in basically a very significant, we are in a very significant proxy war with Russia through Ukraine.
I feel like we're entrenched. I don't know there's a good answer for anybody.
Well, I think that the answer is to have better leadership that's actually interested in peace. Donald Trump seems to be that guy.
Agreed.
Yes.
So if we're going to have a chance at peace, we're going to need people that are interested in at least proposing it.
Yes.
You are right. Donald Trump is the peacemaker, the deal maker, and our best path forward for solving these problems.
He is the peace and prosperity president. He's the peace and prosperity president. That's what he was. So when did the Russians try to mess around in Ukraine in the last decade? When Obama was president, they went and took Crimea, and then when Biden comes back in,
when Trump is president, they stop.
They stopped, right? And you remember they were screaming, "Oh, when he moves the embassy to Jerusalem, it's going to be another intifada. Things are going to go crazy." But nothing happened. Nothing happened, because when other nations in the world see strength, right, and you can negotiate peace from a point of strength, I mean, it says something.
When China said to Blinken, "You are not negotiating from a position of strength," I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
What is this administration on, man? Trump could walk. So you send Blinken in, and they're like, Biden, Kamala, and you? Good luck. Trump walks in, and they're going to be like, you're not negotiating from a position of, and he goes, I'm going to nuke you right now. I'm going to make a phone call. Give me my phone. Where's the phone? And they're going to be like, wait. Where's the football at? Calm down. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.